In our last episode, we talked about the internal operating system and why high achievers almost always hit a ceiling at some point. In this episode, let's get into each of the 4 areas that make up the internal operating system: your nervous system, biology, identity, and emotional memory and capacity, and how they run your life inside and out. Welcome to the Wealthy Life Podcast, the space where high performers rebuild the internal operating system behind their success. I'm your host, Deanna. Each week, we explore the nervous system, biology, identity, emotional patterns, and capacity that help you shift out of survival mode and into grounded, coherent, sustainable performance. Let's begin. First, let's get into the nervous system. If you're not sure what your nervous system pattern is, take the quiz linked in the show notes or on my website. Your nervous system is your invisible ceiling that continues to keep you trapped, stagnant, and looping back into burnout all the time. If you're someone who experiences burnout over and over again, remember, your nervous system doesn't care about your success, how many properties you have, how much you have in your bank account. It doesn't care if something is good for your next stage of business growth or that guy or girl you're trying to win over. It only cares about, are we safe? Can we survive another day? Can we survive another hour? It's fairly simple. I was someone who was experiencing burnout every other week. I used to get out of burnouts, and then I get back into burnout. And it was this ongoing, constant thing for me until I figured out why I kept burning out and worked on getting out of that loop. My life continued to stay stagnant and stuck. Every stress pattern that you continue to live with or haven't resolved becomes your success ceiling. For example, if urgency was your childhood norm, your parents or teachers were always rushing you, making you get things done within a certain amount of time, and you always hustled, moved fast, was always doing something. Calm now feels really unsafe to you unless you've taken the time to complete that cycle, to complete the pattern and finish the loop. If you survive through overperformance in your childhood or even during your teenage years, maybe how you got to places was by overperforming, by always delivering, always beating others. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if that became your identity, rest is very threatening to you because rest feels like you're losing control, you're losing validation. And if your safety during times when you needed care by your caregivers was dependent upon performance, then rest also threatened your safety. If you were a people pleaser, or if you are a people pleaser, you kept people happy to avoid conflict. Setting boundaries feel really dangerous and uncomfortable for you. If you were always praised for you're so strong, you're so independent, you have so much grit, now receiving support feels uncomfortable. And receiving compliments probably also feels really uncomfortable to you. Your system protects you based on past events. It tries to predict the future based on what's happened in the past. And that's why your system doesn't like change. Sometimes this is even change that you consciously want as a rational adult. If your subconscious mind and your nervous system haven't been updated and upgraded into the current version that is aligned with where you want to go, they will continue to be stuck in those patterns, and so will you. It won't feel safe moving forward into those things you currently want, even when you rationally know they're safe and desirable. When you want to regulate your nervous system, you have to start with safety and trust. And this is why high performers try to get to the next level. Things sometimes get worse. Things a lot of the times get worse, actually, because pushing and grinding harder has been the norm for them. It's pretty much all they know. But to your nervous system, that triggers survival patterns even more when you forcefully try to make something happen, because your nervous system now registers that as another threat. It's like trying to drive out of mud. Your wheel is spinning in the mud. You're smelling the burning rubber. You're seeing all the mud come up, but you're literally digging a deeper hole into the mud with the spinning wheels. And that's exactly what a lot of high performers do when they try to get out of this pattern. We'll talk a lot about the nervous system in this podcast, as many people struggle with the nervous system. And all my clients come to me with nervous system regulation struggles. So we'll focus a lot on this topic. The second area, your biology. What is part of your biology? Is your cortisol rhythm, circadian rhythm, metabolic and glucose stability, sleep architecture, inflammatory load, hormones, and also your gut health. Those all constitute your biology inside your internal operating system. You've likely experienced, or you're probably experiencing, some of these yourself. 1, it doesn't matter how many hours you sleep, you still wake up exhausted. 2, afternoon crashes have become very predictable and inevitable for you. 3, cravings. 4, unpredictable sleep. 5, trouble falling asleep or consistently waking up at night, maybe the same time every single night. Once you wake up in the middle of the night, you have a hard time falling back asleep. 6, unpredictable daily energy. 7, if you're someone who was motivated before, it likely comes and goes at this point. And those are just some of the most common symptoms. Everything you experience externally is a reflection of your internal state and data on how you can proceed to either keep experiencing the same thing or create new ones. Think of your internal operating system as the person standing in front of the mirror. Everything you experience, including your symptoms, the people and situations you come across, including how you perform in business, your personal life, and in relationships, those are the reflection in the mirror. And in order for you to change the reflection, you need to change what's in front of the mirror, which is your internal operating system. And this internal operating system you have is constantly shaping the reality you experience. 3, your identity, as in who you are as a human being, not who you think you are, but who your subconscious and nervous system know you to be. The core of who you are and who you are when you're authentic versus who you are when your ego self is in control. I personally think identity is the most misunderstood piece of personal development. Identity is the combination of your lived emotional memory and your conscious reality creation. I think of it as the railroad that guides where the train goes. The train can't go off track. It rarely ever goes off track. You can also think of it as your navigation system, telling you where you should be going, where to make the next turn, how far is it to arrive at the next destination, and where your destination is. Essentially, it's a set of patterns your nervous system has learned to associate with. What is safety? What is belonging? How can we survive? What is predictable in our life? For example, if you've always been the responsible one, your identity will reject anything that threatens that role. And that's why a person who identifies as a responsible person, they will always be responsible. They will always make sure that they do things they promise other people they will do. If you've always been the overachiever, you feel anxious, panic, maybe even have panic attacks when resting. You just can't sit still. So many of my clients, when they first come to me, tell me that they just can't sit still with themselves, that they just don't feel comfortable being alone with themselves in silence and nothingness. If you've always been the reliable one, everyone depends on you. You will never let somebody else down, and you will even sacrifice yourself for other people because that's what you identify yourself with. Identity is who your nervous system learned to be, and who your subconscious learned will help you survive in this world. Unless, of course, you consciously create a different reality for yourself. Some people call it timeline jumping, quantum leap, whatever you call it, is essentially just creating a different reality than your current one and no longer be confined by the limiting beliefs and the vague bias rules that were passed on to you by your parents, your peers, TV, whatever it is that you've exposed yourself to. We'll talk a lot about that as well in this podcast. One of the first things we do inside my programs, along with somatic work, is shifting your identity. Without updating your identity, nothing else changes. Because remember, your identity is a railroad that guides where the train goes. We need to first change the direction of the railroad, and then we change the direction of the train. Last but not least, your emotional memory and capacity. What is your emotional memory? The feelings your body continues to carry with you on a day-to-day basis. The unresolved emotional energy that you continue to carry in your cells, your mind, and your subconscious. The patterns your emotions continue to repeat. Many of us know the same person that continue to date the same type of person. They get into 5 marriages, end up with 5 divorces, and they keep getting into the same situations with different people and just can't seem to get out of that drama. Is because their body carries that emotional memory and their nervous system feels safe in those situations, despite everyone else, maybe even themselves, seeing that the situations and relationships clearly aren't good for them. Your emotional memory and capacity are the limits you continue to create in your own reality. Think of capacity as how much your system can take without dysregulation, without going into a spiral, without shrinking back into survival mode. So then what shrinks your capacity? There are a lot of different things. To name a few, when you suppress your emotions, that shrinks your capacity. When you don't let yourself express your emotions, this also includes past emotions you've been carrying and never got to express. A lot of people hold back their tears when they want to cry, maybe watching a movie, maybe hearing bad news. They don't feel comfortable expressing themselves. That decreases your capacity. 3, when you override your signals, whether that's mental, emotional, or physical. Maybe your body's telling you to rest, but you just keep pushing and keep going. That shrinks your capacity. When you always carry pressure, always thinking about your to-do list, the people you got to take care of, the places you got to get to, despite your body telling you, we need to rest, we need some downtime, we need some self-care. Your capacity also shrinks when you stay in fight or flight for too long. This goes out to my chronic stress people, who's always in this low-grade buzzing of tension and stress and never leaves you alone. That is draining you. It's like having 10,000 tabs open on your computer and constantly running in the background. And the only moments of somewhat of a break for this computer is when it goes to sleep mode and not even fully shut down. Then the morning comes, all those tabs open, and they do it all over again. Your capacity also shrinks when you normalize having too much responsibility on your plate all the time. You carry it all. It also shrinks when you don't give yourself proper recovery. I'm not talking about just going for a nail appointment or a 3-hour spa day. I'm talking about recovery that helps your nervous system shift into safety and recover fully and be able to carry that with you for an extended period of time. It also shrinks when your identity is outdated, one that no longer aligns with the current version of yourself and the future you want to create. That mismatch drains your capacity tremendously. And of course, when your biology is out of balance or dysregulated, your capacity shrinks significantly as well. And now on the flip side, what expands your capacity? When you're feeling safe, when your identity is up to date. Let's say you want to go to version 25, your internal operating system, which includes your identity, is also on version 25. When your nervous system is able to relax. Remember, stress itself is not a bad thing. The nervous system was designed to flip between sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic is good, but what is not good is when it can't flip into parasympathetic, where it stays sympathetic for way longer than it's supposed to. There needs to be a balance between the two. What also supports your capacity is when you allow yourself to go into recovery mode fully, not half-ass it, fully. If you're someone who works on your days off or on vacation, you've likely had thoughts like, I got to send these things to my clients by 4 p.m., but I'm just going to go on the beach, have a margarita, come back to my room, and do this thing. Having that work thought running in the background drains your capacity. Expanding your capacity also means stop operating in survival mode. Survival mode is like you're running a marathon even when you're physically sitting on the couch all day. Talk to anybody who has anxiety. Talk to anybody who's had panic attacks. They will tell you that they're exhausted all the time. Even though they've done nothing physical, that survival energy drains so much out of you. Like you ran a marathon or you've been running for the entire 16 hours of the day you've been awake. When you're able to shift out of survival mode, you will automatically have more capacity for other things in life, to take on challenges, bad news, unexpected events, people, and demands. Those are the 4 areas of the internal operating system: your nervous system, biology, identity, and emotional memory and capacity. We'll be diving much deeper into each of the areas in this podcast. So here's what I want you to take away from this episode. If your instinct is to push through and that hasn't been working for you, I want you to think of your system as needing a software update. Rather than thinking your goals or your ambitions aren't attainable, you just need to update the system and its capacity that's doing the pushing. This podcast will guide you through it all. Thank you so much for being here. If this episode resonated, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's been carrying too much for too long. And if you're ready to rebuild your internal operating system, join me in the Wealthy Life community or explore my private coaching at deannawrose.com. Until next time, take a breath, trust your body, and stay curious. Let's build your wealthy life.